Welcome back to Around the Premier League. We have a great show today. It's like a very dysfunctional dinner party. We have Adam McKola from Full-Time Devils on here. Excited to have him on. And of course, we have our reoccurring guest, the true Geordie. So, boys, first clip is best and worst. We're going to start on the worst because we've got both of you on here. And it just so happens that, in retrospect, both of you guys' teams were on the receiving end of quite a hiding. So I'm going to start with Adam. I'm sure we all know what you're going to say, but what was the worst moment for you in this weekend's Premier League action?
Brendan Rodgers being sacked as... Only joking. It was obviously Manchester United's 20-minute capitulation against Arsenal. I think we turned up to that game expecting to beat them. We played Carrick and Schweinsteiger, who, for me, we should only be playing one of them in the midfield, especially against a team like Arsenal, who are so mobile. And it just happened that players like Ozil, who haven't been performing, Sanchez, who although he's been getting goals, has been relatively quiet, and he's been Arsenal's best player. They had a stormer and blew us away. Sanchez's goals were fantastic, by the way. I'm not going to take anything away from that. And when you're 3-0 down at the Emirates chasing a game, it's hard to get back into it. But we just couldn't get that goal to maybe start the Arsenal fans questioning themselves and stuff. So it was a bad day all around. I'm just glad it stopped at 3 because it could have been 4. I mean, Ramsey missed a sitter, Walcott missed a sitter. It could have been 4 or 5. So it could have been as bad as Geordie.
Hey. You know what it is? I was watching that game and I was thinking to myself, like you, obviously, why isn't Schneiderlin playing? That really baffled me. And maybe, a younger set of legs to chase the ball down in Herrera, because unfortunately, as good as Carrick and Schweinsteiger are on the ball, they look really old in this game. And Wayne Rooney, he just looked so past it. He looked finished in this game to me.
That's what's been happening there. Recently, when we've been playing well, we've had Schneiderlin on the pitch, then Schweinsteiger's come in, and it's kind of freed Rooney from dropping deep a little bit. But then what happened against Arsenal was we had this free-flowing, fluid midfield against a Wayne Rooney that, I'm not going to go over the top, but he's not at his best at the moment. Yeah. And then you've got Michael Carrick, who's just back from injury, Bastian Schweinsteiger, who's been playing 90 minutes left, right, and centre recently. So it was a difficult one. I would question that decision, and I think the players. I think we turned up expecting to beat them, like most of our fans did.
Yeah, I think that on that note, before we go on to Geordie's worst moment, I talked about this on Tactics in Full-Time Devils when I sent that clip over. When you play 2 holding midfielders, what a lot of teams are doing these days, I think for some reason Tottenham are doing this well with Dyer, who's playing holding midfielder, who can also support the attack. You see teams like, this is when Yaya Touré's at his best, when he's hard to pick up because he starts off as a holding midfielder but can drift forward, support the attack and close down higher up the field. Carrick and Schweinsteiger are so used to playing deep that I didn't think there was any interchanging in their movement. And Schneiderlin, however, he moves around a lot more. He'll pressure the possession in the middle of the park rather than just supporting the back line. And I think that was a key factor and allowed players like Ramsey, allowed Cazorla, with all that space and Ozil to link up. Then I just felt that Manchester United lacked a little bit of bite higher up in the midfield, and those two were just reliant on in front of defenders. So
I think Ander Herrera is a guy that makes Manchester United tick. Yeah. I think he's my favourite player because when he plays, I think United are going to play well today. We're going to have a good game. We're going to look good on the pitch. And when he's not in the team, we do miss that little spark. And I think Rooney's captain privileges and number 10 is just, I don't want to keep talking about Rooney, but it's holding us back, I think.
How can he keep starting was my question after that. I was like, how can you keep playing Wayne Rooney after this? You can't. He's just not he's not bringing enough to the team as captain and number 10. So I know what you're saying. You don't want to kill the man after what he's done for Man United, but it has to be said, doesn't it?
All right. Well, we're going to move on to another team in Manchester that had a little bit more of an easier day at the office, should I say, in the second half. Because
Newcastle, you got me on last week.
Newcastle had a good start to the game. But what happened, Geordie? Is this going to be your worst moment, or does something else take over this?
Oh, it's obviously going to be Newcastle in that second half, mate. It was bloody heartbreaking. I mean, the worst bit about it was with Newcastle, and I start most games, I'm like, well, how much we're going to lose by today? And if we don't lose, it's like a plus, it's a surprise, if anything. But in that game, we were so good in that first half. It was the first time I'd had hope in probably a year. I'm talking a full footballing year. I was like, couldn't believe it. Mitrovic, he looked absolutely outstanding. He was bullying that back four. We were absolutely dominating. It could have been 3-1 by half time. And then that second half, it was like, what happened? Aguero happened. That's what happened. Yeah. The best player in the Premier League. He's the best player in the Premier League, hands down. I mean, I was saying this last season. I was getting people saying Hazard. Now I'm like, who? Who's he again? Aguero is just untouchable when he's like that. And we struggle with number 10s. They've always had David Silva, who absolutely rips with a shred. But De Bruyne had a field day as well. And we just couldn't live with the movement. And when you spend 50 million in the summer and you've got Johan Gouffran, who's a winger, playing as your central holding midfielder, you know you're in the shit.
Yeah, absolutely right. So I'll throw it over to the bitter rival on the other side and see if he agrees with this. Adam, Sergio Aguero, 5 goals in 20 minutes, not exactly of the same calibre as Robert Lewandowski, but when he's in this form, when you're looking across from the other side of Manchester, what are you thinking to yourself? Are you thinking when you see Aguero like this, does it make you more scared in your pursuit to try and win back the Premier League?
If Manchester United had Aguero, we're winning the league.
Yeah.
If Arsenal had Aguero, they're winning the league.
Yeah.
That is how good that man is. It's like Luis Suarez when he nearly single-handedly took the clown that is Brendan Rodgers and Liverpool to a Premier League title. Like, sometimes you get these players that are just so good, and you have to just sit back and say, you know what, hats off to him. He's phenomenal. But as Geordie said, Newcastle could have been 2-3-1 up before Man City got going, and you felt that when it went to 1-1, it was looking down from there. But on a positive note for Newcastle, I think Mitrovic is the kind of forward that Newcastle needs.
Yeah,
you see him out there on the pitch. He leads from the front. He battles. He gets the fans going as well. He gets the fans on side, and I think Newcastle haven't had many players like that make the fans want to.
Yeah, he's a bit like if Graziano Pella had have spent the last 20 years in prison, he would be. Like that's what he's like. He's like a twisted, like a twin that was maybe what on The Simpsons where Bart had a twin locked in there. That's what Mitrovic is to Pella. He
never goes too far though. I haven't seen him go too far when I've been watching him. I don't know if he's probably knotted someone and I'm not.
He's got that edge to him, but like you love him. And Newcastle have such little amount of fight and passion in the team, especially where you need it most in the central midfield, that it's just good to see someone who's actually up for it a bit, he's getting the fans up for it. So, that is a positive. But
you think the first half performance though makes Steve McLaren look a little bit better?
If you look at against Chelsea and against City, I mean, the two best teams in the league, Manchester United are up there as well. We got a 0-0 draw against Man United, a 2-2 draw against Chelsea, and we're beaten, City for a good chunk of the game. We've played against the top teams. It's apart from that second half, obviously, but it's the little teams that frustrate me the most, mate. It's when we play Watford and we get beaten off them easily.
Yeah, when you give players like Sergio Aguero the time in the box, this is where I think Aguero separates himself from anyone. For his size and his stature, he has no right to boss the backline the way he does. He's very low centre of gravity. He's good at holding the ball up. But what separates Sergio Aguero is his movement off the ball. I've always said this. His movement is second to none. Of 5 or 6 runs that he'll make, he'll probably get possession maybe once or twice out of that, but it never shies away from making those runs. And when you get him in the box, his first time finishing, especially partnered with De Bruyne, it's almost playing as a second striker to him. You rarely see De Bruyne drifting onto a certain side. He's interchanging with everyone in that movement in the front, especially with those 3 behind Aguero, that it's devastating because he's so hard to pick up. And even when you've got Sterling in there as well, De Bruyne is filling into that role that I think if Manchester City can figure out their performance at the back line, they should be competing in the Champions League. They should be competing in all these different levels of the game because they have the quality there, but it's just those minor holes. But to wrap this up, I think we all kind of have an agreement that Sergio Aguero's 5-goal spree was probably the best moment in the Premier League this weekend. So we'll be coming back on to discuss our Team of the Week. The Geordie and Adam are going to compare their Team of the Week, and I'm going to be here delegating to see who I agree with. Glenn Johnson might even make an appearance in this weekend's Team of the Week. So make sure to come back, check out Full Time Devils, check out the True Geordie and his True Geordie gaming channel. Great conversation as always from these guys. Come back to Around the Premier League here on TYT Sports.